Friends and artists, welcome back to our make your own video or make your own board game challenge. So last week we started by creating our cover for our game, and we added our rules, and we started thinking about how our game would work. So you did your brainstorming sheet. You can see I filled mine out, and we started thinking about graphics and color. What sort of challenges would we have? What sort of rewards? What's the motivation for getting our players to play this? And how would we win? Would we use cards? Would we use dice? Would we use a spinner? So today we're going to start moving forward and continue with our board game, and we're going to start putting in the pieces on the inside of our game. So we have gone through these. Now you'll notice that this medium-sized rectangle box is the same size as the cards. So if you want to glue this on the inside of your board game here, this is a great way to keep your game organized. You can see I already have my spinner here. Keep your game organized so that your game players know where to put the pieces, and then you can work your board game pieces around them. So you have to start thinking about layout. How is this going to work? So you can see I have actually already added my spinner, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, but I want to work my way through the rest of these sheets that are in your packet. So I use these on my cover, but you can also use this for those game cards. And then as we go through, we had all those different rule sheet options. So that was for our back cover, and I don't have my rules written out yet, which is fine because we were still sort of brainstorming how our games would play. Now we get into the game board pieces. These are the ones that are going to go inside our board game, and you can see that there are 3 different sheets, and they all have different functions. So you have these ones which are start and stop pieces. You have these ones which have continuing pieces on each side, but they have like a bigger piece in the middle. So these could be a reward, they could be a penalty, they could be a challenge. Think about how you want to use these. And these are the same thing except they're a corner piece. So maybe you have this on a corner and you get here and you get to collect $200, or maybe you get here and you have to go back to start. I don't know, just maybe you draw a card. Think about how you're going to use these different pieces. What are the functions of each shape, and how will color play a role in this? You also have these T-shapes, so you could maybe come up here and choose your own adventure. Will you go one way or the other? And you have this cross shape. Then for corners, we have a couple different corners. We have these ones here with these rewards, challenges, writing areas. We have rounded corners, loopy corners, and we have ways to move forward around your game. You could have the zigzag, you could have these little bumps, and we have straight pieces. We also have these jumps, so you could do something like that where they have to like jump a piece. Now today we talked a bit about spinners and cards and the die. So with the spinners, I chose the 6 spinner because my game is a drawing-based game, and so obviously I chose the color wheel as my spinner. So I cut out the 6-piece spinner, and I actually glued it to my board, and then I cut a tiny hole in it by just sort of pinching it in half and using a pair of scissors, and I cut a little V shape. Now I'm using a brad. This is what a brad is. It's like a little T-shaped metal fastener. And if you need one of these, I have a bunch. And I put it through a paper clip. And then we put it through our paper from front to back. And we need to make sure that the hole that we put in the middle of our spinner is smaller than the head of the brad, or else your brad will just go right through. Then after we get that through, you spread the two legs of the brad apart, again making sure not to make it too tight. It has to be loose enough so that your paper clip can spin. So just make sure it's loose, and then you can test it and it spins just fine. So that is how we made our spinners, and we want to make sure it's not on the crack and not on the fold, because if you do that, you will have a hard time folding your board game in half. So you can see I put mine right in the middle here. I'm going to put that rectangle here for my cards, and I'm going to have my board game go right around and maybe end in the middle here. So I've thought about how my game will play, how my layout will work. I just need to lay out the pieces. Now the other thing I wanted to point out about these game pieces is that you can just cut these squares out and put them together like a puzzle piece, or you can actually cut out these shapes and cut along the black outline. That is up to you. It depends on how much cutting you wish to do. Now, next on our list is the die. So you're welcome to use a normal die. If you have 2, 1, that's fine. I included this because, like for my game, it's color based, so we want to have a custom die. So what you're going to do is draw or write your options on the 6 faces of your die first, and then you are going to fold every one of these lines, these gray lines. And I'm going to see if I can unglue this. And that includes these little flaps. So you can see I have my cross shape here, and I folded up my flaps. And then we take our glue stick, and it says right on the flap, fold and glue. So I do the 2 side pieces first, which on the cross are the top and bottom of the arms. And then they go on the inside of the pieces that come up, and give it a good pinch. You may want to use bottle glue, you can use tape to secure it, however you need to do that. Come here, I'm going to do the same thing. Like I said, if you want a sturdier die, or if you're just going to use the numbers 1 through 6, you can use a traditional set of dice or a die with your game. You do not have to make a custom die. But because my game is colors based, I chose to do that. Now it's open at the top. I would glue around these extra folds. 1, 2, and 3. Alternatively, you could glue right around the edge of the flap. And then we're going to put that flap down on those 3 edges, and we should end up with a cube. All right, I'm going to give it a little pinch, and I have a square die. All right, now, here we go. Now, when we are playing, we also want to consider the cards. How are we going to use these cards? That is up to you. I have 3 different versions in your kit, so you could use these to move people back 3 squares, up 3 squares, up a square. You could flip them over and say, okay, move forward 1 square, and if you get them this way, it's move back a square. It's up to you. You could make them money. You know, like especially this one, you could say, you know, $1. This could be, you know, your challenge card of hop on your foot 3 times or lose a space. I don't know. It depends on what your game is. So think about how you can use these cards if you're using cards in your game. The last thing are these game pawns. These are the pieces that you'll use to move around your game. We haven't gotten to these yet. We are going to get to these later. We still have about 2 more weeks on this project. So this week, I really just want you to focus on the play of the game. How is the game going to be played? How are you going to lay out the inside of your game? We're working on what I call the guts now. So you can see I have my spinner going, I'm going to lay my cards out, and I'm going to lay my game board out on the inside. I'm also going to keep working on my cover, and I'm going to finalize my rules now that I've thought out more of my game and how it's going to work on the inside. So if you have any questions, send me a message in Schoology. Otherwise, keep plugging along on the inside this week of your game. I cannot wait to see how these work and what you come up with. I hope you have a great weekend.